It has been forever since we featured the great Beth Mowins on BYU Sports Nation. She joins us now on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline, ESPN play-by-play specialist. Beth, it's been 2,064 days, in case you were counting, since we were hanging out in Vegas at the West Coast Conference Tournament. What took so long to get you back on?
I am so glad I've had my counter over here with all the days since, and I finally get to take that down. So I am thrilled, and hopefully it won't be as long again. I've been listening a little bit this morning. You guys must have known I'm a huge Mark Twain fan, talking about not letting your education get in the way of your learning, as old Mark used to say.
I went to a Mark Twain museum in, I want to say, Hartford or something once.
Yes, yeah. He's big in Hartford. Yes.
Yeah, massive in Hartford. So are we. Crazy. Let's talk about this matchup. You're calling the game with Western Kentucky and BYU, and we were talking to you during the break. You've seen a lot of the best of the rest in calling games with Coastal Carolina and Louisiana and, of course, Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So here comes BYU, who isn't technically in the same category as Group of Fives, but they do join that conversation of the best non-P5. So what do you think of BYU in that conversation?
Well, I'm really anxious to sort of see them live, if you will, although we'll be calling the game from home this weekend. But actually just had eyes on Cincinnati last week, their game at SMU. They look really good. It was probably the best game that their quarterback, Desmond Ridder, has played all season. Their defense is legit. They've got a couple of challenges coming up at home, and then their last 3 games will be on the road, including a trip down to Orlando to see UCF. So I think that will be one of the big things, you know, when you talk about a Group of 5 team getting a New Year's 6 bid, and then BYU obviously could get an at-large, or even when you're talking about playoff potential. I think Cincinnati is a team that BYU fans would probably want to be rooting against at this point. I think they are the other team that the playoff selection committee is sort of weighing alongside the Cougars right now. I think everyone else is probably a notch below, and I don't know if they will be able to make enough noise. Coastal Carolina, I think, is a terrific feel-good story, but I think BYU has a chance not to overlook Western Kentucky, but next weekend with Boise State will be a monster game, I think nationally in terms of BYU's chances.
Sure, BYU ranked number 10 in the coaches poll, number 11 in the AP, highest ranking for BYU since 2009. What's your impression of the Cougars in the rankings? Do you feel like they're worthy of that rank? Because there has been much conversation about, well, BYU's lack in strength of schedule. Where do you stand on that?
You know, I'm a big fan of BYU being right there where they are. And I would even love to see, you know, it's such a unique season. Why are we ranking, like, say, the Big Ten right now? Why don't we wait a few weeks for them to build up a little bit of a resume? You look at a BYU team; they're 6-0, and they already have wins on the resume to sort of prove their worthiness. And I love to see them and Cincinnati right there in the mix, because they have been playing. And let's give the Big Ten teams a chance maybe to work their way into that conversation. Same thing, I think, when the Pac-12 and the Mountain West starts up. But, you know, the voters and folks nationwide look at things a little differently. So, but, you know, one of the big curveballs, I think, obviously, that COVID is throwing is what's going to happen to Wisconsin and what's going to happen to the rest of the Big Ten now if they have big problems with the pandemic.
Yeah, it's an interesting year, right? When you look at Indiana at 18 and Coastal Carolina at 20, and then you see USC and Iowa State and Oklahoma and Boise State behind. It's weird. I kind of like the weirdness, but BYU's taking advantage of this. And one guy who has is Zach Wilson. And gosh, Beth, we thought he'd be better this year, healthy and a junior and all that, but we did not expect him to be in the Heisman race. What have you thought of what Zach has done this year?
I think he's one of certainly the breakout stars of the season. I think we knew what we were going to get from, say, a Trevor Lawrence and a Justin Fields, but I would think he's right there in the conversation with those guys, depending on how things play out in terms of a Heisman Trophy race. You guys are aware, you go back to Detmer in 1990, the last time that a guy from outside the Power Five won it, and I was actually looking at some of Ty's numbers, absolutely ridiculous from that 1990 season. You know, his 41 touchdowns. were paled in comparison to the 42 NCAA records that he apparently set that season. So I think Zach has been so much fun to watch because as more and more of his story comes out, all the hard work that he put in, driving to California in the off season to make the most of what, could have been a difficult situation all around and put in the work and put in the training. And I love to see these guys that seek out, sources, a guy like a John Beck and a Drew Brees and guys that came before him that did it well and wanting to soak up all that information, I think is a really cool thing to see. And then certainly being able to team up with this new group of wide receivers and, hopefully we'll see Gunnar back this weekend. You probably have more info. We're going to talk to the coaches tomorrow about that, but just, for someone like me and a fan who grew up in the heyday of BYU throwing the pill all over the yard with the likes of McMahon and Steve Young, it's great to see that back in Provo.
Certainly. Beth Mowins, play-by-play specialist for ESPN, is going to call the BYU Western Kentucky game on ESPN Saturday night. We've been diving into just why Western Kentucky goes from a team that was 9-4 and returns a majority of their defensive starters to really struggling to this point, 2-4, and now BYU is a heavy favorite. What's the reason behind Western Kentucky's digression this season?
Just from what I've been able to see and statistically, the defense still looks pretty good. It's the offensive numbers that have declined. Obviously, they're replacing their quarterback this year, and it seems like it's been a two-man job to this point, which is always, kind of a dicey situation. But the run game numbers are down. They're scoring a touchdown less per game. They've only had one game all season with 300 yards of total offense. So I think they've really struggled to get the run game going, and that's obviously affected the entire offense. And that will certainly be a big issue against the Biggins up front for BYU this weekend. But that seems to be the problem. And they still have not announced a starting quarterback. Both guys have been kind of dinged up this year. So advantage, I think, to the BYU defense for sure to continue causing problems for that Western Kentucky offense.
Beth, are you prepared to call a fair catch for an up back in this game?
I had not been, but now I will be. You have usually the skill guys down in your memory banks and are quick to be able to call those guys, but yet now it's a whole new skill set, not just the deep backs, not just the long snapper and the holder, but now we got to know all those other guys. And so that does create a little bit more work for us for sure. And my spotter, we are traveling our spotters.
Ooh, okay.
So he will be in Provo. And that will be one of his key jobs is to figure out who those guys are up front. Yeah.
And after the Chattanooga game where, Chattanooga's going to win that game if the other returner doesn't wave his hand on a kickoff. I mean, that was insane. But, let's talk about BYU. And we've been talking about, obviously, New Year's 6. There's a legit chance BYU can get one. If they're 10-0, do you feel like they're good at that point? Or do they need to schedule a game late in the season when they only have two, when all the big boys are playing every week?
Yeah, I'm was listening into your conversation from earlier, and my guess is they will be hunting for another game. Unfortunately, it looks like that Nebraska-Chattanooga game has been nixed by the Big Ten, so that's apparently will be one less conference to try and pick from if dates open up. But that's going to be a big issue because you want to stay fresh in the minds of the playoff committee. You want to be on the national scene. I would not be shocked if they do try and add another game late in the season. My five things that we'll be talking about this weekend on the game for BYU, I think to still have a legitimate shot at the playoff, you got to be impressive in your last four games. I think BYU fans ought to be rooting for Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State to go undefeated and look good doing it.
Yeah.
And there's your other three spots, so there's one open. You can't have a Power 5 second place team that looks good with the eye test and with the resume. You have to have Oklahoma State lose, and then you can't have a Pac-12 team go undefeated. And I think you have to have a Cincinnati loss. if those 5 things fall into place, I certainly don't see why BYU would not be in the discussion for that 4th spot.
Oh, and you're talking about the playoff.
Yes, I'm still talking about a playoff. So I think a New Year's Six is absolutely in the mix based on if all those other things happen. I don't see why an undefeated Cougars team would not get one of the at-large spots, because you're not necessarily worrying about all of the other things around a bowl game from a fan perspective. And even though BYU would travel well anyways, I think you are really locked in on an undefeated record and the eye test, and BYU certainly looks really good in that scenario.
Beth, let's talk about what would be impressive, specifically against Western Kentucky.
We have to put on the what we call the blue goggles if we talk about the playoff, Beth. This is just, we have to. It's a thing
are those rose-colored glasses?
Yeah,
well,
we're like, oh, I see the playoff. Yeah.
Our version of that's for sure. Beth, let's quantify what would be impressive for BYU against Western Kentucky specifically. Are we talking about a 30-point win, a 40-point win? What has to get what do they have to do to get attention?
I don't rely heavily on our friends in the desert. I think the line was somewhere around that 30-point mark last time I checked. I think the blowout win certainly against Western and North Alabama would be significant. And then I think you've got to be impressive, in terms of Boise State and San Diego State based on what they do the rest of the season. It certainly wouldn't hurt for those teams to have BYU as their only loss. And if you're winning by, a touchdown or two, that would certainly catch my attention as a member of the playoff selection committee, which I am not. I look at a seat on that table with the glasses that you just had on there, I think, or maybe my wide angle binoculars that I use up in the press box. That's my shot at a seat at that table.
I love it. Beth, so great to catch up with you. Let's not wait 2,064 days again. And I think I've been watching way too much HGTV because I want to compliment you on the barn door.
I was going to say the barn door is really nice.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Actually, my husband is responsible for the stone wall, and actually I was in charge of the barn door. I did. That was hands-on for me with the sander and the stain, and oh yeah, urban rustic. Urban rustic, we like to say.
Yeah,
yes.
We're going to need to talk interior design next time, Beth. So we'll save some time for that.
That's nice stone wall behind you guys. So I'll give you the thumbs up on that.
Yeah, we didn't do that.
Thanks, Beth. Enjoy the call on Saturday night.
Thanks, guys. Looking forward to it.
Beth Mowins on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Deseret First, you know why, we show how.
He's great, man.